What if an empath's kindness was never the solution, but secretly the root cause of their loneliness? Empaths spend their entire lives believing kindness is the ultimate currency, offering endless generosity, unconditional understanding, and effortless warmth, convinced these qualities will earn them genuine love and belonging. Yet, Carl Jung subtly hinted at a much darker truth few empaths ever dared to confront. Continuous, unconditional kindness might not always be a virtue. Sometimes it's a subtle, unconscious strategy, a shield carefully crafted to protect them from rejection, conflict, and the painful truth of not being enough just as they are. Have you ever wondered if your constant kindness was secretly a shield you used to hide your true feelings? Perhaps deep inside, beneath your compassionate smile and patient listening, there's a quiet fear. A fear that if you revealed your true emotions, set clear boundaries, or dared to say no, you'd lose the approval and acceptance you've tirelessly worked to secure. Carl Jung introduced a rarely discussed concept called the bargaining persona, a hidden false identity empaths unknowingly construct. This persona negotiates silently with the world, trading kindness and perpetual harmony for emotional safety and validation. It whispers softly, "If I'm always agreeable, if I never upset anyone, surely they'll have no reason to abandon me." But what happens when the empath finally sees through their own game, when their carefully constructed kindness falls apart? What truth emerges when the bargaining persona shatters, leaving behind only vulnerability and raw authenticity? The answer might be more unsettling, yet more liberating than any empath could possibly imagine. Lucas had always seen himself as the glue that held everyone together, the quiet negotiator, the calm mediator who could smooth over every argument before it even started. At 30 years old, his entire identity was built around making sure others felt comfortable, safe, and heard. Whether at work, with family, or in his closest friendships, he had perfected the art of anticipating tension, stepping in early with soothing words, gentle reassurances, and subtle self-sacrifice. People around Lucas often said he was easy to be around, someone who never rocked the boat and always knew exactly what to say. But one rainy afternoon, while standing unnoticed near an open kitchen door during a friend's gathering, Lucas overheard something that shattered his carefully constructed self-image. Friends he'd trusted deeply, whom he'd always protected from conflict, spoke candidly about him. "Lucas is nice, sure, but he never has an opinion of his own. He's safe, but honestly, kind of weak. You never really know what he's thinking." Another voice chimed in agreement, adding painfully, "Exactly. He's always so agreeable it starts to feel fake after a while. Who is Lucas, really?" Lucas felt as though the ground beneath him had disappeared. The words echoed relentlessly in his mind, triggering an inner crisis he couldn't escape. For the first time, Lucas found himself asking uncomfortable questions about his lifelong patterns of behavior. What if his kindness wasn't genuine at all? What if it was just a carefully disguised survival tactic? And what if all this time, he'd been using his empathy not to truly connect with others, but to shield himself from the unbearable pain of rejection? Have you ever stopped to question whether your kindness is genuine, or simply a defense mechanism you've mastered to avoid rejection? This unsettling question lingered in Lucas's mind, pushing him toward a brutal honesty he'd always avoided. He began examining the motivations behind his actions, retracing countless moments when he'd sacrificed his needs, suppressed his opinions, or dismissed his true feelings. Slowly, a pattern emerged, revealing a deeply ingrained subconscious strategy: kindness as a silent method of control, a subtle negotiation aimed at securing emotional safety. Lucas realized with painful clarity that he'd spent years not authentically connecting, but carefully engineering environments where conflict, and thus rejection, could never happen. The revelation was both liberating and devastating. He faced a raw truth. He had never allowed anyone to see his authentic self. His kindness was genuine in its expression, but profoundly dishonest in its intention. Lucas saw clearly that the comfortable distance he'd maintained behind a shield of constant agreeability prevented anyone from genuinely knowing him. His fears, hopes, sadness, anger, and even his genuine joy. His relationships felt close but were shallow, built upon a fragile harmony rather than honest intimacy. A profound sense of loss settled within him, a mourning for the authentic connections he'd never had, the honesty he'd never experienced, and the self he had never allowed to exist openly. Lucas no longer recognized himself without the protective persona he'd carefully cultivated. He felt profoundly disconnected, as though meeting a stranger who'd inhabited his own life for decades. Yet, within this crisis lay a crucial insight. Empaths don't stop pleasing people because they lose patience. They stop because they finally recognize harmony at the expense of honesty was always subtle dishonesty and a betrayal of their own authenticity. Lucas understood now why his relationships felt incomplete and why his kindness, despite good intentions, never brought genuine fulfillment. He had mistaken conflict avoidance for emotional intimacy, agreement for acceptance, and self-denial for generosity. Now Lucas stood at the brink of a profound internal transformation, one that terrified yet strangely energized him. He understood clearly what he had to do next: shed the comforting mask of perpetual kindness, risk discomfort, risk conflict, and risk losing relationships built on the fragile illusion of constant agreement. Only by embracing this truth could he finally discover if true acceptance was possible. Acceptance based not on the pleasant persona he projected, but on the complex, imperfect human being beneath. But what exactly is waiting on the other side once the empath confronts the darkest secret hidden beneath their endless kindness? The moment an empath becomes truly powerful isn't when they abandon kindness. It's the moment they recognize that their continuous kindness has quietly imprisoned them. It's the instant they finally confront the painful truth. Their tireless generosity was never fully selfless. It was a carefully masked attempt to avoid rejection, keep people close, and maintain control. Empaths spend their lives believing they're making deep connections by offering endless warmth, comfort, and sacrifice. But what if the exact opposite is true? Consider the symbol of a lighthouse whose purpose is guiding ships through darkness and storms. For years, you've seen yourself precisely as that guiding light. Steadfast, dependable, unfailingly bright. You offer guidance without question, warmth without condition, comfort without end. You believe your presence prevents suffering, resolves conflicts, and holds everything safely together. But ask yourself honestly, what would happen if you switched off that comforting beam? Who would you be without your constant role as caretaker and protector? More importantly, who would others become if you stopped shielding them from their own darkness? Here's the deeper, unsettling insight Carl Jung subtly alluded to. Empathy can become a hidden form of emotional manipulation. It's uncomfortable to consider, but ask yourself, could your relentless kindness be your quiet strategy for ensuring others remain dependent upon you? Could the empathy you believed was purely compassionate actually be an unconscious effort to secure your own emotional safety, ensuring you're always needed and never abandoned? Empaths fear abandonment above all else. This deep-seated anxiety often leads them to sacrifice their authenticity. They become masters at anticipating and accommodating the needs of others, skillfully avoiding discomfort or confrontation at all costs. Yet in doing so, they create relationships founded not on genuine connection, but on a subtle, unspoken emotional contract. I will protect you from discomfort, and in return, you'll never leave me. Now imagine clearly what this emotional bargain has cost you. True intimacy requires vulnerability and openness, an honest exposure of your raw, messy, imperfect self. But your endless kindness has hidden those authentic parts of you behind an impenetrable facade of harmony. You've denied others the chance to truly see you, just as you are, human, flawed, sometimes afraid, sometimes hurt. By shielding them, you've inadvertently robbed yourself of real connection, real love, and real intimacy. Could you bear the weight of discovering your kindness wasn't just generosity, but a subtle strategy you've unknowingly used to keep people dependent on you? This revelation can feel devastating at first, like losing an essential part of your identity. But in truth, it's a profound liberation. The lighthouse turning off its beam isn't abandoning the ships. It's finally allowing them to navigate their own storms, discover their own strength, and grow without reliance on someone else's guiding light. In stepping back, the empath releases others to become fully themselves and simultaneously reclaims the freedom to be fully authentic in return. You've believed all this time that kindness is your greatest gift, but perhaps your greatest gift is allowing discomfort, honesty, and genuine vulnerability into your relationships. Real kindness doesn't shield others from reality. It gently encourages them to confront it. True compassion doesn't mean always easing burdens. It means sometimes allowing others to carry their own weight so they too can become stronger. When you finally stop maintaining that constant illumination, your relationships may initially shift or even fracture. Some people, accustomed to endless comfort, may drift away. But others, those who genuinely value you for who you truly are, will draw closer, embracing your authenticity and complexity. You'll finally discover who genuinely loves and respects you, not for the ease you provide, but for your truth, your honesty, your humanity. But here's the unsettling realization Carl Jung kept hidden. What if your lifelong empathy was never purely selfless, but instead a shadow game you've played without ever realizing? True freedom for the empath arrives at the exact moment they realize authentic kindness isn't endless accommodation. It's sometimes allowing disappointment. It's having the courage to stand fully within their own truth, daring to express feelings they've long hidden, risking rejection and misunderstanding in exchange for genuine connection and intimacy. Ask yourself honestly, what would your relationships look like if you finally allowed yourself to stop pretending you're always fine? Who would remain if you expressed your boundaries, your fears, your exhaustion, your true desires, not in fragments, but as a complete, authentic human being? Realize that the intimacy you crave doesn't arise from constant harmony, but from shared vulnerability. Authentic connection is born not when you endlessly soothe and accommodate, but precisely at the moments you dare to reveal your true, imperfect self, moments when you risk discomfort and disappointment. It's in these uncomfortable spaces that true love, respect, and understanding flourish. Consider the relationships in your life. Do they truly see you, or merely the comforting role you've perfected? Are the bonds you've built genuine, or are they constructed upon the shaky ground of constant pleasing? A subtle emotional contract you've unconsciously created to guarantee safety? Real empathy means offering others your true self, unedited and sometimes uncertain, allowing them the freedom and dignity to face discomfort without immediate rescue. By showing your true emotions, even when they're messy, complicated, or inconvenient, you grant others the permission to do the same. This shared openness cultivates a depth of connection impossible under the guise of endless accommodation. Understand deeply. Your value never rested on how comfortably you could hold others, but in how courageously you can stand within your own truth. Your real strength is found not in hiding behind kindness, but in stepping boldly into honesty, even if that honesty initially feels like chaos. If you've reached this pivotal moment, let today mark a profound shift. You no longer need to measure your worth by how effortlessly you please others. Your empathy deserves to be honored through authenticity, transparency, and genuine emotional presence, not through perpetual harmony. If you've realized your empathy deserves authenticity instead of endless pleasing, type empath awakened below. Let this be your commitment to finally living your truth. Let this moment symbolize your decision to exchange the shallow peace of constant accommodation for the rich, fulfilling depth of honest intimacy. Empath awakened. Choose it consciously, because your authentic self is waiting, ready to be finally and fully seen.